Awesome. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. If you don't already know me, my name is Jeray Pearson, and I am a holistic health and empowerment coach. Tuesdays is when I get to meet with other coaches, and we do a collaborative, informal talk on different topics. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about living without labels. And I am joined by Laura Thomas, who is a good friend and also an online coach like I am. So hi, Laura.
Hello.
Laura, why don't you just sort of tell us a little bit about what you do?
Okay, so I am Laura, and I'm a mindset coach. So I currently help women live beyond any labels that either society has given them or they have kind of given themselves, and help them dive into who they really want to be in this world going forward.
Awesome. And you also deal a lot with like mental health stuff, correct?
Mm-hmm. So I am a survivor of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, and I lost myself to those labels. I defined myself to them. I defined everything I could do and be in life by depression and PTSD. And I really halted my own life for many, many years. So now that I'm on the other side of it, now that I pushed through and redefined who I really wanted to be, I want to share that and give that back now to other people.
That's awesome. Well, I've known you now for how long have we known each other? Oh gosh, I don't know, 6-8 months, something like that.
Something like that.
And so we both we met actually through our coach. And so we both are big proponents about having coaches to help you live the life that you really want to live. Yeah. So I am going to, sorry about this. I have to, here we go. I'm sharing something. All right. So living without labels is this is something I think that I tackle in my groups. And once you become kind of aware of some of the labels, it has a really big impact, I think. Yeah. It says I can invite Lindsay. Huh. Is Lindsay on? I don't see anybody on. Anyway, so why don't we talk about what some of the labels are that we come across, and especially as women?
You know what? There's some of the bigger ones, like I said, like mental health diagnosis, but I find the ones that are really holding specifically women back is our everyday labels like mom and wife, and by the job we hold. Like we feel like unless we keep that job, even though we're unhappy and miserable in it, we lose our identity if we leave that job. So many women now are staying in those jobs unsatisfied, unhappy, miserable, because their identity is attached to it. And the same as becoming a mom. And I was guilty of this. Is I really lost who I was as a mom. I forgot about me and who I was like as a woman prior to being a mom. And so many women now, we fall back to not that our children become our excuses, but sometimes they're reasons for us to hold ourselves back because we feel we have to come second. So some of those daily ones that we've kind of put on ourselves, I find as women are now holding us back.
Right. So like mom, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, that was me. Like I remember when I, stepping into the college role of being a college student, and I didn't read any books. Like I didn't read a novel that was fictional for 7 years while I was in college, because I was like, I'm a college student. I don't have time to read for fun. I should be reading a textbook, So, I mean, it's easy to fall into any label that, if you're not aware that that's what you're doing, right?
Well, and I think society tells us, especially when you become a mom, that that's what you're supposed to do. I think society as a whole tells us that we are supposed to come second. And yes, our children, of course, come first, and we have to nurture them and care for them and keep them safe. But we don't have to forget about ourselves while we do that. And I think that's the disconnect in the message when we become moms is, yes, they become a priority to us and we have to raise them and all of these blessings, but we shouldn't have to sacrifice ourselves as well. And I think so many of us believe that since we become a mom, we have to sacrifice who we are.
Yeah. And do you think that has a lot to do with, we feel that in order to be a good mom, then we are XYZ? So
I call
we
it
create,
superwoman syndrome.
yeah, right. We create what that label even means.
Oh, I feel like women are trying to juggle every ball possible, and where there's so much fear to let one ball drop that they would just lose themselves instead of disappointing a family member or a spouse or a boss or a colleague, right? They'll just put this superwoman face on that life is perfect and life is fine, when meanwhile they're just losing themselves inside. And I think a lot of us have to hold ourselves accountable to that, is we do that to ourselves.
Really do. We even internalize the way that people are reacting to us, or the things they say to us, or the way they're responding. We will take that and internalize it in our label. So like someone will say like, something that maybe isn't even necessarily negative, but we're internalizing it within the good mom label that we've created for ourselves, or even through our judgments of others. Sometimes we will subconsciously be judging other moms for certain things. And so we think that if I were to do that, put myself first, or self-care, or any of that, then that makes me maybe selfish or something. Right. And maybe we should, I don't know, selfishness, the label of selfish is also gets tied into some of this stuff as well. That's a whole nother topic, I think. But
when I look back, I used to be that person who identified myself through labels. I judged other people through labels as well. I was guilty of that. Like, I was that person. It wasn't until I actually dropped all of my balls in life, wasn't balancing anything, and found myself on a floor with mental health, that I actually came out of it and realized that we're all just trying to survive. Like, we're all doing the best we can do every single day. But unless I'm my best to me, I don't have much to offer anyone else then.
That's exactly
all about filling up your own cup first and then sharing that with others.
Yeah. Well, and because we can never really live up to everybody's expectations. And so we do that. We try and this person thinks that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing if I do these things.
Right.
And this person feels that if I do these other things, then and so we'll try and hit everybody's points, everybody's markers, and without ever really tuning into ourselves to figure out what do we actually consider a good mom, or a good spouse, or a good career woman, or whatever our own goals are.
Well, and that can happen in our own today's world as a coach, right? Is trying to keep up with all of these other coaches and following what they're doing and this doing and that doing, right? Unless you're really aligned with who you are and authentic to who you are and your own integrity, you kind of get stuck again, right? Like, you kind of label yourself again, and you're trying to compare yourself, and you're just not being authentic. So to me, it all came back to just really defining who I am and what I want to offer, and going from there. So that's really what I try to teach women now, is just kind of getting that alignment within themselves.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love doing it. But in the world, though, there's so much comparison and hoops to jump through. And yeah.
I agree. All right. So let me see. I don't know if that even popped up. So as women, so we've kind of talked about what labels are. What can we start doing, real practices to get away from the labels, or maybe to even become aware of the labels?
The first step that I had to do was probably the most difficult, and it was to actually stop. I had to stop. I had to physically stop being so busy and having this massive to-do list to finish, and all of these chores around this house and all these responsibilities. And I actually had to stop and give myself 10 minutes of silence to figure out, what do I want to do today? Who do I want to show up and be today? And it was the hardest thing for me to actually stop, because I was an adrenaline junkie. Like, I was a constant go-getter. So when I started slowing down, and then one day I actually said, okay, Laura, enough, you just have to stop. I judged myself, thought I was wasting time. Because, of course, as a mom, and at the time a wife, I should have been doing other things in my mind. But over time, I realized that just that ability to press pause and give myself 10, 15 minutes to collect who I really want to be today and what I want to show up like, that opened the door for me so much. And I always say to women, there's no huge magical, like there's not a wand, there's nothing magical to this. Just slow down. Slow down. Pause your life for a second and breathe. Get really present in who you are in your own life and decide, who do you want to show up as?
Right.
Because that will take you to the next step.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is something. So years ago in marriage counseling, that's something that our counselor had us do was, write out what kind of spouse you want to be. If you can't name off 5 or 6 traits that you want to have as a spouse, then it's going to really rattle your world if anything ever happens within that relationship. Like you have to know you're on point with yourself before anybody else. And that's ultimately important. Hi, Kim. I see Kim popped in. Because we external, and it is, I almost feel like it's a human reflex to go external before we go internal, to validate ourselves or to figure out who we are or what we need to do. It's like we admire people or we don't admire people, and we see like the negative side of people. And so we take those and we're like, I don't want to be that person, or I do want to be that person or whatever. And so I found in my coaching, and let me know if you can relate to this, that a lot of times women it'll be easy to rattle off a bunch of things that they admire about other people. But when you put it on yourself, when you say, well, how do you embody those qualities? And maybe are you even possibly internalizing yourself as being inferior because you're not hitting these admirations that you're looking, seeking out for. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your challenge that's starting today?
So today I have a challenge. It's a free challenge. It's a 3-day training series called Journaling for Your Soul, where we are actually tapping into who are you, right? And I'm encouraging people to take 10 to 15 minutes to stop and get the hamster off the wheel. Let it breathe, right? Like close some of those tabs you have open, because you're just creating all this mental clutter. And that's why we have mental fog. That's why we can't sleep. That's why we drive someplace and we're like, how did I get here? Right? That's why we forget things. Like there's so many ways that we are like, not dropping the ball, but there's so many ways that we aren't living up to who we really want to be. And that's because the hamster doesn't stop.
Right.
So in this journaling training, I'm teaching people how to actually get the hamster off the wheel and honor yourself with 10 minutes to just decide who do you want to be in that moment with paper and pen.
Well, and I mean, and look, as women, there's an article going around right now. I don't know if it's Power of Positivity or one of those groups is, and it's all about how women need more sleep than men because their brains are going. So, I don't know how true this is or whatever, but for me, it's real. For me, I'm thinking about, I'm strategizing, and I'm all the time trying to think about how I can show up for my clients in the best way possible. And so it does take, if I didn't meditate every day, if I didn't have my moments of gratitude every day, if I didn't stop and journal when I'm feeling like chaos and not sure which steps to take or whatever, I would be where I was a few years ago, which was chaos, where my house was chaotic. My life, my relationship with my kids was chaotic. My relationship with my spouse was chaotic. Like everything in my life was sort of like, so it's so true, because you run, trying to pick up all the pieces and not drop any balls. But it's those moments of clarity that actually make the biggest difference, and you're able to strategize in a clear way and whatever, right?
I tell the women in my coaching practice that their inner experience their outer experience is a direct reflection of their inner experience. So if you can look around you and it's chaos and you have piles and you have just like disarray in every which way, like in your fridge, on your table, in your car, at work, right? 1,000 to-do lists.
In your budget, in your
everywhere. How you parent, right? If it's always chaos everywhere you turn, that's because internally you're in chaos. internally you have too many tabs. So you can keep cleaning up the house, you can keep knocking down all of these lists and everything, but unless you do the work inside within yourself, you're just clutter cleaning. I tell people you're surface cleaning. You gotta dive deep. You gotta go in order to make change on your outside world.
Well, and this is why I'm sure you can relate to this as well. This is why with our like with Lindsay, even with our coach Lindsay, when we are going through a lot and we can ramble off a bunch of stuff, this is all the stuff going on with me or whatever, and then she just goes, well, sweetie, why don't you just blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my God, like how do you know, I've been trying to come up with the answer for weeks or whatever. And
but you get so caught up.
Exactly. That's the difference between a mind that is like emotionally intelligent as opposed to a mind that's just kind of running on like on the hamster wheel all the time.
Well, and to be honest, I don't think, like, reflecting back and in my coaching practice and over the years with the hundreds of people that I've worked with, I don't think we're taught that as children.
No.
I don't think we're taught to stop and think and reflect and take that time for ourselves. I don't think, I can only speak for being a woman, I don't remember ever being told that I'm a priority in my life.
Right.
Ever. Right. And then we come into this year of becoming parents and wives and all of this, and we're like, well, wait a minute, what about me? Right. No one tells us that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes you can use the energy. So when you're tuned in a little bit more, you can sort of use the energy that's swirling around you as a signal to when you need that. That's something like I remember my husband years and years ago losing a job. He got laid off during a slow time of the year or whatever. And I said, just take a week, just regroup before you start putting out this energy of like scarcity and I need a job right now and all this stuff. And so with my kids as well, I try and do that with them. If you're in the heat of the moment and you're emotional and you're feeling all this stuff, sometimes that is exactly when, know, it seems like we need to solve the problem, right? We need to solve the problem right now. But that's really not how it works. No, we don't.
It's one of my parenting practices that I do catch a lot of judgment and criticism from other people is if my children are my daughter's 11, so she's very dramatic right now. And if she's in one of her drama moods, I hand her a paper and pen and I say, just go put music on and calm down when you're calm. I don't discipline her. I don't reprimand her for having this freak out, right? I want her to learn to center herself. I want her to learn to realize what was actually going on in my mind and in my world that I lost my shit that badly.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm giving her those tools now because I don't remember that stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think kids are taught that. I think we teach our children what to do and what not to do, but we don't teach them their feelings and what to do with those things. And then we grow up and we're adults. And now what?
Well, and when we're young, like before 11 years old or whatever, I had conversations with my kids to try and, get to the heart of things. Why were you so upset? What were you really feeling? And I found how often parents don't do this because people would, with my children, of course, as a mom, you're really paying attention to how people discipline your children or what they say to your children or whatever. And so I noticed with my first one that I gave birth to, people would start jumping on her for something. And when I took that few seconds to just listen to her, what's going on and be like, okay, this isn't a big deal. She just needs to calm down a little bit and walked through it. And I remember especially the older generations who, parented way differently than we do now would be really quick to just be like, send her to her room, put her in a corner, give her a timeout or, whatever else. And I always felt like, but then they're not heard. And how are they going to be using their voice later in life? Yeah.
When I went through my divorce, my son was little. He was 5. So he's 7 now. And the last 2 years, I've really concentrated on teaching him as a boy that his feelings matter. That he has feelings and it's okay to have them, it's what do we do with them, right? Because so many people are like, well, he's just adjusting. Okay, but that doesn't help him.
Right.
He doesn't understand that.
Right.
How can to help him understand what is going on in his little mind so
So
he
true.
can grow up and feel stable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they really do need a voice. I love this. I love talking about this.
Yeah.
Especially when they're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. That's when it really becomes important to them that they're heard. Because at that age, I think that they correlate being loved to being heard almost. And so it's really important. I see that with my kids.
Yeah.
My oldest, and having said that, I parented similar to what you were just talking about, and my oldest is turning 20, and my kids have never been in big trouble. They've never, like they don't act out the way that a lot of kids do and stuff. And so I know that it works. I know that it works. You don't have to lead with the iron fist or whatever.
No, and I think at that age too is when they start also labeling who they need to become in this world, like the good kid or the bad kid or the smart kid or the class clown. Like I think that's the age where the labels really start too. So I really we don't have labels in this house at all. Like I am like, if my kid comes home with a label from a teacher or somebody, I'm on that like a dirty shirt, because growing up I labeled myself as the kid who did everything right. Like I had good grades, I went on to school, I had my career, I met a man, we bought a house, right? Like, so in my mind, I did life right because I labeled myself as that good girl, and I got mental health with it.
Yeah. Well, and I was just actually reading Carol Dweck's mindset book the other day, and it reminded me a lot about labels with kids and about how calling them smart isn't necessarily a good thing, that you want them to understand that their actions can create a smart person or whatever. And if you just make it seem like somebody was born with something, they don't work as hard, and that's fact. It's proven. And so I reading that book again was really eye-opening to me again, also about labels and how we just take them on sometimes. I'm not smart enough, or I'm stupid, or whatever, and they stick with us from the time we are kids.
Well, and we know, right? Because we've worked through some of our old stories and our old belief systems and our old values that we've carried from when we were little kids, right? Like we dived into that stuff and faced it head on. So we know how those labels, those words, those belief systems, how all these years later, they're still with us, but they're not serving us anymore. They're actually holding us back now.
Yep. Well, every single one of my clients uses their past stories, brings up something that a parent has told them repeatedly, or that a teacher told them repeatedly. Sometimes it's good things. Like I still remember when a family friend told me that it didn't matter what career I went into because I'd succeeded in anything that I put my mind to, and I still remember he was one of the only people that ever told me that. And so I was like, I hung on to that, for the last 25 years or whatever. And so those voices in our heads, we kind of get to pick which ones we listen to and which ones we don't.
I recently in my coaching practice just had a lady who was holding on to things that she heard from her mother, and she had carried them all the way into her adulthood. And we were doing journaling and healing. And I said to her, let's just write your mother a letter and let her know her mother's passed on. Let her know like who you are today, and that it was 12 pages long. Like, when she started and got that hamster off the wheel, it just kept going.
That's huge though. I mean, what a breakthrough. Like you cannot write something like that and not grow from it. There's just no way about it.
Yeah. She's like, I sleep, I breathe, I wake up with excitement. She feels free.
Yeah.
She's been holding on to all of that.
That is so cool. Well, you and I have been in coaching sessions together where we're in tears over our pads of paper and, whatever. Because you have to go deep in order to have the big breakthroughs. And so it's definitely helps to find a tribe of people that are also going through growth, which is also why I love coaches and coaching environments. Because you meet people that are all kind of on the same page as you are.
Oh my God, I think I cried almost every session for 6 months.
I know we did, right? I know. I was crying over you guys crying, and yeah, just
I remember at some point saying, okay, I have to stop crying because I have to go get my kids from school soon.
I know. I have a client meeting after this, and I'm going to be a blubbering mess. Yeah,
I have to pull it together.
pull it together.
That's what happens when you dive deep. You pull that crap out.
So true. It's stuff you don't even know was there. And but boy, when that happens, how free. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, even sitting in my counselor's office, I read a book called, I might have it right here. Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy, did I cry for like weeks reading this book. Like every sentence almost in this book was just like, oh, that's me. That's my life. That's what I did. That's how I set up my relationships. And that's what I did, you know.
That was me for Daring Greatly by Brené Brown.
It's
a book that took me the longest to read. It took me 6 months to read it because I would sob.
Yeah.
Sob. I was in a really dark place. I'm like, I was just coming out of my depression at the time. But I would sob to it because I was like, oh my God. Like she was like yanking on my heartstrings, but I needed it, right? Like I had to push through it.
For me, it was a lot of validation.
Yeah.
Because it just explained exactly why I had done the things I had done and all of the dynamics in my life pretty much. And so I was like, okay, now I can start fresh now that I'm aware, you know, or
absolutely
super empowering. So do you have is that a free pop-up group that you're doing this challenge in, or is this your everyday group?
No, so this is a free training right now for the next 3 days. I do have an everyday group for women only called Authentically Me. It is a super fun, higher energetic group, very active women. Every Monday we do live card readings. We have an interview series every month where I interview women that are living authentically to themselves. And I'm every month doing free trainings, but every day it's not just me posting, it's 10, 11, 12 other women posting their stuff as well, because it's a completely high vibe, safe zone. And we actually had our first get together last night, just a super casual local event here. It was so much fun. So much fun.
That is so cool. I love it. All right, so we will we'll wrap it up. If anyone has any questions, you can drop that in real quick. I am going to, so I have some free stuff. I have my free groups. I have a holistic nutrition for autoimmune disease group, as well as my Well Tribe community, which is, I have opened up my groups now to men and women. I've been behind the scenes coaching men all along. So I was I owned a fitness studio, and I had clients from my fitness studio that then carried forward when I came online. And so finally I just decided, you know what, empowerment goes for everybody. And so I am opening up my groups to men as well now. And have sort of changed my niche a little bit and my branding, but because I just want to help everybody who wants the help, really. Don't we all, right?
Right.
But so we will drop our links either in the description or in comments or whatever for our groups and for her freebie group. I have a free ebook that I will also leave on here just for fun.
Beautiful.
A gluten sensitivity ebook. So, all right, you guys, if you don't have any, I don't see any other comments. So we are going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for being on with me today, Laura.
And
we probably could have chatted without pushing broadcast for hours.
Well, I think we did that once. I think we hopped on a Zoom call for 15 minutes and we were on it for like an hour and a half.
I know, right? It's awesome though to have people who can strategize and brainstorm with you. So if anybody wants to reach out, please follow Laura and then reach out to either of us if you have any questions on the topic today or other topics, and we will be there for you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.